Hey there folks, I'm Mark, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse, and yep, it's the Taylor Swift Speak Now, Taylor's version album bomb week, and it's Billboard Breakdown.
I don't remember.
So I've said before there are album bomb weeks I don't really mind. I think this might be one of them. I've said before that Taylor Swift's third album, Speak Now, is my favorite of hers. Might be a running tie with Midnight's, depends on the day. But I also know that it falls in an odd place in her popular canon. It doesn't have the absolute dominant hits of Fearless or Red. It's kind of dated to an odd time in pop and country in 2010, as it tries to pick up some pop rock tones from the decade previous. And let's be real, nobody in Nashville quite knew what the next sound was going to be, so they leaned in on some of her bombast to cover up their lack of ideas. It's also paired with Taylor Swift growing as a songwriter, with a lot of uncomfortable rough edges that I paradoxically really like. So to see all of it hit the Hot 100, we're talking all of the album plus the From the Vault tracks, 22 in total, makes for quite a lot here. Could wind up a pretty meaty episode, all I'm saying, and a pretty good one. But unfortunately, Speak Now isn't quite as beloved as Red is, so it doesn't have much impact on our top 10, and that means Last Night by Morgan Wallen went back to number 1. I mean, I called it last week. I'm not surprised that based off of enormous streaming and nearly at the top on radio, it's not facing more sustained serious challenges. I would say Fast Car by Luke Combs can make a run beyond number 2 thanks to its sales and a radio run that's narrowing that gap, but he doesn't yet have the streams to go further. I mean, that held over Vampire by Olivia Rodrigo, falling off the top spot to number 3. I'm not surprised that it faltered a bit on sales and streaming, and while the radio is pushing, it's gonna make this a thing, it's just this considerable margin to really plug up that gap. Now, it did hold over Calm Down by Rima and Selena Gomez, which is steady at number 4. Looks like it's peaking on the radio, but it's probably gonna be the streaming losses that eventually unseat this. But then we got the one new Taylor Swift song that smashed through, and it's a legit new one pulled out of the vault, I Can See You, at number 5. We'll talk about it more later on, but it's got solid sales, phenomenal streaming, especially off of YouTube, and yet it likely won't get shipped anywhere else beyond this week. It's a one and done. Most album bomb tracks are. Now, that doesn't really matter for Flowers by Miley Cyrus at number 6, which is just in free fall, but it could open up a lane for Fuck You Mean by Gunna at number 7. Pretty much just here on huge streaming. If the radio decides to actually support it, it could get more interesting. Still was enough to bull right past All My Life by Lil Durk and J. Cole at number 8, which still has radio momentum, but it's losing the streaming margins game, and that leaves us with 2 more Taylor Swift songs to round out our top 10, both not from the album bomb, with Cruel Summer at number 9 riding strength across the board, and Karma with Ice Spice at number 10, which is still on its radio run, but seems like it's running out of gas. Speaking of which, our losers and our dropouts. In the latter category, I mean, this is what happens when you've got multiple weeks of album bombs. Very few songs that are gonna get kicked out that ultimately matter. Outside of nearly all the Lil Uzi Vert album bomb, which is now gone, the only 2 tracks of which I've got anything really to say are Boy's a Liar by Pink Pantheress and Ice Spice, comfortably getting its year-end list spot for 2023, and Ain't That Some by Morgan Wallen, thankfully being knocked off well short. We absolutely have a lot of losers though, a full third of the chart, so let's start off with the debuts from last week that got hit. From Lil Uzi Vert, the songs that actually survived were Flooded the Face down to 60 in endless fashion with Nicki Minaj at 76. Then outside of that, we had Tulum by Peso Pluma and Grupo Frontera at 62, and Mojave Ghost by Tiny and Bad Bunny at 99. Then we had the continued losers like Barbie World by Ice Spice, Nicki Minaj, and Aqua at 49. When that Barbie movie soundtrack comes out, it's gonna rebound. Then Chemical by Post Malone taking another hit to 55. When his album comes, similar rebound, same story. Sabor Frieza by Fuerza Regida at 59. Also lost for TQM at 68. Then Oh You Went by Young Thug and Drake slide down to 78. And Waffle House by the Jonas Brothers at 100. But perhaps the guy who took the biggest blows here were Peso Pluma. Continued losses for Lady Gaga with Gabito Ballesteros and Junior H at 65. Bye at 84. Luna with Junior H at 85. And Rubicon at 93. But also new losses losses for La Bebe with Young Lucas at 37, Bizarre Music Sessions Volume 55 with Bizarre Rap at 81, Por las Noches at 89, and El Azul with Junior H at 94. I don't know how much this will rebound next week, but I'm gonna gauge his staying power. That'll really manifest next week one way or the other. Now, streaming dominant formats tend to take body blows with album bombs, so Un Por Ciento by Grupo Frontera and Bad Bunny hit 44. Bad Bunny on his own had Where She Goes at 51. Put It On the Floor Again by Lotto and Cardi B slid down to 54. Area Codes by Kali at 61. Stand By Me by Lil Durk and Morgan Wallen hit 71. TQG by Shakira and Karol G hit 88. And Pound Town 2 by Sexy Red, Tay Keith, and Nicki Minaj hit 96. Finally, whatever's left. Morgan Wallen had a couple losses with Cowgirls with Ernest at 95, and Thought You Should Know is at 45. Then we got Memory Lane by Old Dominion at 41, and Next Thing You Know by Jordan Davis at 38. But now for our returns and gains. There were no gains, but for some ungodly reason, Shake Something by DaBaby is back at 86. Now, as you all know, the story here is the Speak Now Taylor's Version album bomb, and we're absolutely in the territory for my tier where I only talk about the top 20 and any songs that might get into my best or worst. Now, I was tempted to treat the From the Vault tracks a little bit different, given that I was less familiar with them, but hey, I don't give any special treatment to any other artist. Why would Taylor Swift be so special here with the re-recording? So with all that in mind, Superman at 74, Hours at 69, Innocence at 63, man, that song's aged weirdly, Never Grow Up at 58, Long Live at 53, Haunted at 50, The Story of Us at 42, Mean at 39, Speak Now at 33, Better Than Revenge at 28, comment on the contentious lyric change, I get why she did it, I wish she didn't feel like she had to, because the song with the right framing actually kind of works as is, Dear John at 26, and Sparks Fly at 22. Now from the vault, okay, my recommendation is to check out Timeless at 48, Foolish One at 40, and When Emma Falls in Love at 34. I was kind of ambivalent on Castles Crumbling with Hayley Williams at 31, and Electric Touch with Fall Out Boy at 35 just kind of had me wondering why Taylor Swift couldn't bring in Neil Afrin for just the one song to really make it pop. There's potential there, the production was not bad, but it could have been better. Now on for a thankfully more reasonable list of new arrivals. Unfortunately, starting with number 90, LALA by Myke Towers. There was a part of me that was dreading this. I knew the buzz with this new song from Myke Towers was pretty bad, but the worst he had been before in the Hot 100 was interchangeable and forgettable in other people's songs. And I gotta be honest, I think some of the backlash I heard might have been a little overblown. Yeah, the canned stock reggaeton percussion is beyond played out, and the whole la-la sample loop gets stale in record time, but some of the synth bass and groove, it's decent enough. I mean, the lyrics are nothing to write home about. I swear I've heard this sort of overly horny hookup time and time again, and Myke Towers doesn't exactly help by bringing much in the way of personality, but overall, let's be real, I have heard far worse in reggaeton over the past several years. It's not particularly good, it's kind of dated, but I know I'm just gonna forget it in record time. Move on. Number 82, Point Me To by FendiDa Rappa and Cardi B.
Glizzy with no bullets, do he even kill? What? Niggas dissing when they rap, should we call it drill? What? Niggas capping in they rap, should we give them deals?
Am I the only one kinda tired of certain rappers hopping on other people's songs because they themselves haven't built up their own proper run for their album yet? Glaring right at Nicki and Cardi here? What's worse is that they often are remixes that overtake the original that could still be getting some real hype. But at least Cardi B's streak of verses are been marginally better, so okay. FendiDa Rappa, she's out of Chicago. Her original shuddering song was called Point Me To the Sluts, where she reminds me a little of Young M.A. and the balance between that horny lesbian energy and the heavier bruising threats. Also, she might have a better flow. And then Cardi B, who is actually bisexual, shows up and almost steals the show. Yeah, that line referencing Tiny and T.I. is sketchy, especially given Cardi B's often troubled relationship with Offset, but Cardi's also more expressive. She's legit funny on more than a couple lines, and seems to completely get the sort of energy and groove this track has. So it's clearly built for the strip clubs, and for what it's worth, it's actually reasonably well produced. It's pretty effective. You know, I'm fine with this. It's pretty solid. I can see it growing on me. It's worth a shot. Check it out. Number 66, Super Shy by NewJeans.
Make you mad, I'll lean and take them till you're on my mind. All the time I wanna tell
So Cupid by NewJeans has had a simply remarkable run on the Hot 100 this year. It's gonna comfortably make the year-end list, of which I'm actually quite happy, as it's a K-pop new disco song I actually like a lot. So I was curious how the hell they could possibly follow it, and what we get is a very obvious Pink Pantheress riff. Now, let me give them some credit for a second. This is actually a pretty obvious pivot for NewJeans, given the wallflower personas that they have used, and the shuffling patter of the percussion against some of the glossier synths and the chopped up vocal samples. It will cultivate that atmosphere pretty effectively, even if I don't think the song has the same diversity of vocal tones that Cupid did, and it does kind of feel pretty basic and stripped back in a lot of its construction, especially the lyrics. Feels very built for TikTok, and while that's not a bad thing, it could have used a little bit more to stand out. It's not bad, I'm just not as impressed this time. All I'm saying. Number 57, Last Kiss by Taylor Swift.
Kiss. I never imagined we'd end like
Not gonna lie, it was a toss-up for the best Taylor Swift song outside of the top 20 to include here. I mean, I could talk about how Mean gets some nice ironic flair years later. I could talk about how Dear John is shockingly effective even years removed, and not just because John Mayer is a total asshole. I could talk about Haunted and its attempted gothic bombast that promised more. Seriously, Taylor, go in that direction, be cool. Or if we're gonna go to the vault tracks, When Emma Falls in Love and Timeless were both really pleasant surprises for me. But Last Kiss is the song that Taylor Swift described as the saddest one that she's ever written. And while I would disagree in recent years, The Archer, Champagne Problems, especially This Is Me Trying, yeah, this one's a heartbreaker. A pretty straightforward, stripped-down song with distant, lumbering percussion and shimmering acoustics, as she recalls the shape of a relationship where she was the one who got dumped, where you could tell that she really bought into all of it, and yet never thought that he would fall out of love and be the one to end it. And there's no malice here either. You can tell that she wants him back, and the weight of the re-recording just deepens that emotion that comes with time, but she also knows that he's already forgetting, he's trying to move on. The song's just so very, very sad, especially as it takes up its time to fill over 6 minutes and never feels like it's dragging. It's just a phenomenal penultimate song on Speak Now. It's the one reason I never really liked the deluxe edition getting any credibility and getting packaged with it beyond validating Hours, which in my opinion has always been mid-tier. But this, I think it's special. You probably haven't heard it in a long time. It's a deep cut. Check it out. Worth hearing. Number 19, Enchanted by Taylor Swift.
Wondering if you knew I was enchanted to meet you.
Okay, for some ungodly reason, I'm very much in the minority here. Of all the deep cuts that fans swoon over with Taylor Swift, I've never really got the appeal of Enchanted compared to the rest of Speak Now, the song she wrote about the crush she had on Adam Young of Owl City. I mean, I'm not saying it's bad. I don't hold anything against her for that crush. She describes it with a decent amount of sweetness and yearning. It's catchy enough. I'm clearly not the target audience. And you know what? The re-recording with the benefit of Taylor's more refined vocals and a slightly more robust mix, especially in the strings, it absolutely helps, even if the production feels a little compressed for my taste. I just don't think it's as special as other songs on the album. It's not quite as memorable. I'm left feeling that it could have captured the magic by playing a little more understated. Yeah, enchantments are subtle. This song kind of isn't. I mean, it's fine, don't get me wrong, but you know, if I'm going to compare it to something, say, number 16, Back to December by Taylor Swift.
You saying I'm sorry for that night, and I go back to December all the time.
I'm going to try and fail to keep this relatively short. This is one of my favorite Taylor Swift songs, period. It's also one of the best hit songs of the 2010s. The song where Swift's maturity began to fully manifest and came closest to winning me over for her as a songwriter, where she retells a relationship where she failed. She's pleading for another chance, and she doesn't get it. She's got to accept that. And given that this maturity has only deepened in Taylor Swift's voice on the re-recordings, the real test for me was gonna be in the production. And okay, this is gonna be me nitpicking way more than I should, but I think Christopher Rowe's strings are a little too warm and burnished for this song. Yes, it's the right tone. The bells and the shuddering guitars, they're there. That slight trace of organ on the final line of the bridge, it's perfect. But there was something a little hollowed out and cheap sounding in the original strings arrangement that recalled the 2000s pop rock influences that also kind of fit the chilly weather captured in that song. This pickup is arguably a better quality, just doesn't have that same old feel. But still, I'm nitpicking. It's one of the best songs Taylor Swift has ever recorded. It's worth plenty more listens. Number 15, Mine by Taylor Swift.
You put your arm around me for the first time. You made a rebel of a careless man's careful daughter. You are the best thing that's ever been mine.
So here's another cut from Speak Now that I've never loved, but it was also one of her biggest hits from this era. I get why it came back this high. And you know something? Going back to it now, maybe it's Taylor Swift's voice feeling a little bit richer, or the arrangement bringing a little less youthful naivete, but I think I get why this one works a little more for me. The weight of history feels more evident as she writes from the perspective of a girl who is a child of a failed marriage, who's now trying to make something work with a new partner, but seeming to always expect the worst. That's a slightly more complex, lived-in relationship struggle than just dating a college guy. Now, I do think it's probably missing something in that add final bit to put it over the top. Maybe one more shade of nuance or another turn, and I've never really been wowed by the hook. It's good, but not great. But over a decade where I've always been lukewarm on the song, the re-recording is pretty good. I'd say it's fine. Unlike number 5, I Can See You from the Vault by Taylor Swift.
See you up against the wall with me, and what would you do, baby, if you only knew that I can see you?
So let me put it like this. I'm not against Taylor Swift writing a song that feels more sultry, a little bit more sensual energy. It's not a weapon she pulls out often, but she's gotten a lot better at it in recent years. And while the lyrics here never get too explicit, absolutely it's got a feel of a song that probably got cut because it impugned the whole wholesome girl next door vibe. You know what? This can work for what it's trying to do. And yet despite all that, this doesn't work at all. You can tell that Jack Antonoff is trying to crib notes from something that the Black Keys might have tried back around when Speak Now first dropped, with the whole choppy lo-fi electric guitars blending in with the oversaturated acoustics and a rougher mix. But I'm sorry, the smeared over blending combined with a serious lack of any interesting bass line, it makes the song feel like this unkempt experiment even before all the horns drop in for that final hook. It's clearly trying for more southern sleaze. I get why Taylor might be interested at this at the time. And you know what, even if I liked that instrumentation, that specific type of sensuality, it's not in her arsenal. You need fire or some grit that she doesn't have in her timbre. That's why someone like, say, Kesha might be a better fit. Now, this feels like something that probably would have been left off of Rainbow. So look, this is not terrible, it's not even bad. The music video is kind of inspired. It's nice to see Taylor Lautner get more work. He probably deserves it. He looks good. But at least in this form, I'm sorry, I don't think it works. But that was our week. Actually pretty manageable. I'm happy about that. The best is easy. Back to December, Last Kiss is the honorable mention, both from Taylor Swift. Whereas for the worst, I mean, you'd think it'd be LALA by Myke Towers, but that's a dishonorable mention. The worst is I Can See You from the Vault by Taylor Swift. I'm sorry, it's a clunky genre pivot that just doesn't work. I know this sound, I call it like I see it. Now next week, I don't think we've got an album bomb to replace this unless that Lil TJ project did some numbers, so we'll probably just have the Fallout. Stay tuned for that. Until then, I'm Mark. You're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse. And I'll see you next time.